Hey guys, this video is going to go through the homework, page 23 in your textbook, numbers 7 through 12. Keep in mind that during this video I'm going to go over numbers 7, 9, 11, and 12. Before we start, I want to review your I can statement. Your I can statement is I can solve equations with variables on both sides. So that's the skill we're going to be working on. As always, feel free to pause, rewind, or ask a question if you get stuck on the way. But make sure you're using this video to help you set up your equations and hopefully helping you to learn. So let's go ahead and get started with number 7. So number 7 says 3k minus 1 equals 7k plus 2. So like our I can statement said, we're going to have variables on both sides, so don't panic. I'm going to teach you how to kind of use the box and square method to kind of help you combine those. So what we need to do is we need to get all the k's on one side and all of our numbers on the other, okay? So what I did is I actually went through and I boxed our variables and I circled our numbers. So just like the lessons before, and this is going to help me kind of organize my thoughts. So I'm going to go ahead and label up here that all of my squares are coming to this side and all of my circles are coming over here. That way I know which way I move them. So if all my squares are coming here, I'm going to look at this 7k and I'm going to think if there's no sign, it means that they're adding or it's positive. So I'm going to do the opposite to get it to the other side. So I'm going to subtract by 7k. That's going to cancel it out, and we're going to bring it over here. So we can have all of our k's on one side. I know that 3 minus 7 is going to give me a negative 4k. So now there's no k's on this side, which is awesome, because we're going to try to get our numbers over here. And all of our k's are here, and we combine those like terms to get 1k. I'm going to use a different color for this one. So we want to get our circles on this side because remember this is canceled out. So in order to get my minus 1 over there, I'm going to do the opposite and I'm going to add 1. That's going to cancel out. Whatever I do here, I have to do over here. So I'm going to do 2 plus 1 is going to equal 3. I forgot to draw my line, so don't make sure not to do that for you guys. But what you should have is negative 4k equals 3. Now, this should look a little bit familiar. If we need to get k by itself, and we have a negative 4k, no matter what it is, it could be 6x, it could be 5k, whatever it is, this is always going to mean multiplication. If there's a number right beside a variable, it means multiplication. So we need to make sure we're doing the opposite to get k by itself. So in order to get k by itself, I'm going to divide by negative 4. And whatever I do here, I have to do over here. So I'm going to come over here and divide by negative 4. So I have k by itself. Okay, so I have k equals ready to go. And 3 divided by negative 4, if you're not sure, use your calculator. There's a couple ways you can leave your answer. You could just leave it like this. So it would be a negative 3/4. Or a 3/4 in decimal form would be a negative 7.5. So those two answers are both correct, just depending on how you want to write it. Mrs. Youngers will probably say this one out in class, and that's okay. Just know that these are the same thing. So pause, rewind if you didn't quite get that one. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to number 9. Okay, number 9. So we should have negative 24 minus 1/8p equals 3/8. So the good news about this one is there's less things to take to the other side. So I'm going to not forget to draw my line this time. So I apologize for the last one. And we see that we have 2 p's here, and we just have one number. Okay, so if we use our box and square method, I'm going to circle this one. I almost boxed it. I'm going to box my numbers with variables. I'm going to box here. So what would make the most sense is we're going to take this p over to this side because p is already there. And then that would leave our negative 24 by itself. Okay? So, let me change my color here. Lost my marker. Here it is. So if I need to get negative 1/8 p over to this side, I know I need to do the opposite. So I see that we have subtraction sign here. So I'm going to add 1/8 p to get it to this side. So whatever I do here, I have to do over here. And remember when you're adding fractions, don't let this terrify you. So if I'm adding fractions, I can write it out just like this. And if we have common denominators, all we have to do is go right across. So we have 3 plus 1, which would equal 4/8. Just don't forget to add that p there. I'll get that out of the way. And then what I have left is my negative 24. So this is gone, p's all on one side. I need to get p by itself still, and what we just talked about, even if it is a fraction, if it was 1/2 p, if it was 5/10 p, this still means multiplication, always and forever. So if I know I'm multiplying, and I need to get p by itself, I need to divide. So I'm going to divide by 4/8 to cancel that out. P is by itself. And whatever I do here, I have to do over here. Now this can get a little bit tricky. I'm going to encourage you to type it in on your calculator to double check. Mine is lucky and it does fractions for me. Yours might not do that. If you're not quite sure how to do fractions on your calculator, raise your hand so a teacher can help you, because not every calculator is the same. But what you should get if you type it in right is p is equal to negative 48. So if you had a hard time with your calculator, make sure to ask. Otherwise, let's move on to number 11. Okay, number 11 is going to look a little bit different than what we've been doing. You're going to see the distributive property come back, and I'll show you how to work through that. So the first thing I see is parentheses, so I know I need to get rid of those. So remember our distributive property, we're going to distribute this 2 to all parts in the parentheses. So I'm going to start here. So 2 times n would give me 2n. Let me change my color here. Then I'm also going to distribute this 2 to this minus 3. A lot of times students will forget to do this, and that's where they run into trouble with the distributive property. So 2 times a negative 3 will give me negative 6. So notice how my arrows show where my answer is. And I'm going to set that equal to 4n plus 1 that we still have. So now it should look a little bit similar for number 7, which we started on. Okay? So we have 2 n's on both sides, and we also have 2 numbers. We need to get those on the same side. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. I'm going to move back to black here. So I'm going to go ahead and square and circle my numbers. Like I said, this just helps me remember where I'm going with them. Sorry, this is an N. And let's go ahead and have all my squares come over to this side and all my circles over here. So let's go ahead and start doing that. So if I want my squares over to this side, I need to look at 4n. And there's no sign in front of it, so I know I need to do the opposite, which would be subtract. So I'm going to subtract 4n. Whatever I have to do here, I have to do over here. So minus 4n. Keep in mind, if I'm taking a number that's smaller from a bigger, it's going to be a negative number. So it'd be a negative 2n. So I have all my n's over here, which is perfect. Wonderful. We're ready to do the next step. So we have negative 2n minus 6 over here still. And we still have that 1. So my goal is to get this 6 over to this side. So I need to look. We're subtracting right here. So I need to do the opposite, which would be plus 6. Whatever I do here, I must do over here. So I'm going to get plus 6 again. 1 plus 6 would equal 7. I'm going to write down what I still have left to solve, which would be negative 2n equals 7. Reminder, 2n means multiplication, okay? So you're multiplying. And if I want to get n by itself, I need to do the opposite, so I'm going to divide by negative 2. And whatever I have to do here, I have to do on the other side. So I'm going to divide by negative 2 over here as well. Then I'm going to use my calculator. And I'm going to do 7 divided by negative 2. And n, remember n's over here still, I just ran out of room. N is going to equal negative 3.5. So pause, rewind if you didn't quite follow all that. We added a couple extra steps there, and that's okay. If you had trouble typing it into your calculator, you didn't get my same answer, double check your calculator because sometimes things might happen where you type in something wrong. Don't forget that negative, okay? And last but not least, we're going to do number 12. Number 12 is going to look a lot like number 11. These just have a couple extra steps, so I wanted to make sure you had a good example to work from. So we're going to have 2 4z minus 1 equals 3 times z plus 2. So now instead of doing it just one side, we have distributive property on both. So don't panic, we're going to do both of these, and we're going to distribute first, and then we'll regroup in a minute. So we're going to do 2 times 4z, which would give us an 8z. And we're also going to do 2 times a negative 1, which is going to give us a minus 2. Remember, you have to distribute all the way through. So we're going to do the same thing over here. We have a 3 times a z, which is 3z. And we're also going to distribute that 3 to that positive 2, so it would be plus 6. So if you got lost on that, rewind, double check how I distributed, and that's how we're going to distribute those out. So now it should look like the equations we've been working with. We have a z here and a z here. We need to get those all on one side, along with our negative 2 and our plus 6 on the same side as well. So we're going to go ahead and start boxing and circling. So I'm going to box my 8z. I'm going to circle my negative 2. I'm going to box my 3z. I'm going to circle my positive 6. So keeping with the pattern I